There is a scene in Joker where a man sits across from his social worker. He is on 7 different medications. He has not slept properly in what looks like years. He tries to tell her something real about his life, and she cuts him off to tell him the city has cut her funding and the office is closing next week. He asks her one question. What am I supposed to do about my medication now? She does not have an answer. Nobody does. That scene is the whole movie. Not the murders, not the clown makeup, not the famous staircase dance. That quiet, fluorescent-lit room. Most people remember Joker as a film about a villain being born. That reading is wrong. Joker is a film about a system, and the system is not a metaphor. It is a specific city in a specific year, run by specific people, making specific choices about who gets to keep their medicine and who does not. Section 1. The Gotham That Isn't Gotham, 1981. As argument. The first thing you hear in Joker is not music. It is a radio. Before Arthur Fleck has said a single word, before the camera has even fully found his face, a voice on a local news station is already speaking. The date, the voice says, is Thursday, October 15th. The time is 10:30 in the morning. It is 42 degrees. And then the news begins, and the news is this. It is day 18 of the garbage strike. 10,000 tons of trash are piling up every day. Health officials have declared a state of emergency. There are rats. Not normal rats. Super rats, as the radio calls them. Rats that have grown bigger and bolder because the city has left so much food rotting in the streets that the rats have started to thrive on what the people cannot even clean up. This is the first information the movie gives you. Not a name, not a plot, a setting. And the setting is a city eating itself. There is a reason Phillips made this choice, and it is not decoration. The year 1981 is the single most important piece of information in the entire film. Everything else, Arthur, his mother, his job, his medicine, his laugh, his fall, his rise, his crime, is downstream of the year. Change the year, and the movie becomes a different movie. Keep the year, and the movie becomes an argument. Here is what 1981 actually looked like in America. Ronald Reagan had taken office in January. By November of that same year, 9 million Americans were out of work. The country was going through one of the worst periods of recession since the Great Depression. Businesses were closing. Farmers were losing their land. Families were losing their homes. The new government was cutting spending on social programs, the kind of programs that help poor people get medicine, help sick people see a doctor, help mentally ill people stay stable enough to keep a job. At the same time, military spending was going up. During those years, the Pentagon was spending $34 million an hour. Not a day, an hour. That is the air the movie is breathing. You do not need to know any of this to feel it. Phillips puts it on the radio in the first 60 seconds, so that even if you cannot name the year, you can smell it. Look at what is visible in the frame once Arthur steps outside. The movie posters on the walls of Gotham are not random. Zorro the Gay Blade, released in July 1981. Blowout, released in July 1981. Excalibur, released in April 1981. Phillips is not borrowing the feel of a decade. He is locking the film to a specific window of weeks. The Gotham Arthur walks through is not fantasy. It is photography. It is what the real New York City looked like in the autumn of that year, rebuilt and reshot by a production designer named Mark Friedberg, who chose Newark for much of the filming because parts of it still carried the poverty and the decay that New York has since painted over. Friedberg has said openly that he wanted Gotham to look like the city from Taxi Driver. That movie came out in 1976. Phillips is stacking decades on top of each other so that the viewer feels a continuous line, a rot that never actually got cleaned up, only hidden. Now hold that in one hand. In the other hand, hold Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne is running for mayor. His pitch is simple. Gotham has lost its way. Only someone like him, someone who has built something, someone who has made something of his life, can save it. He goes on television. He speaks about the unrest. He says he is considering running because something needs to change. He positions himself as the outsider who is also, somehow, the most powerful man in the city. The movie is doing something quiet and deliberate here. Thomas Wayne, in the Batman stories most people know, is a good man, a doctor, a philanthropist, the kind of father whose death makes his son grow up to protect a city. In this film, Wayne is still rich, still powerful, still a father. But the goodness has been reframed. Phillips has placed him in 1981 in a collapsing city as a billionaire making a faux populist run for mayor while the poor lose their medicine and the rats eat the garbage. His message is that poor people are where they are because of who they are, and rich people are where they are because of who they are, and the job of the government is to let the second group lead the first. This is not a random choice. Phillips, in interviews, has said over and over that he wanted to make a character study in the style of the movies he grew up with. Taxi Driver, The King of Comedy, Serpico, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Those movies were made in the 1970s and the early 1980s. They were not superhero stories. They were stories about men whose lives were going wrong inside cities whose lives were going wrong. The reason Phillips chose this style was that he believed the story he wanted to tell, the story of a man who gets failed by every single system around him, could only be told honestly if the systems around him looked like systems that had really failed people. So the 1981 setting is doing three things at once. The first is historical. The film is placing itself in a specific, real, documented moment in American history when the social safety net began to be deliberately cut. The Reagan years reshaped what the government was supposed to do for its poorest and most fragile people, and the answer the government came to was less. Less funding, less medicine, fewer social workers, closed offices. That is not a reading imposed on the film. That is the film's setting. You cannot watch Joker and not watch it. The second is emotional. By placing the story in 1981, Phillips removes the shield of nostalgia. A lot of viewers look back at the 80s and remember neon and music videos and bright clothes. The Gotham of Joker has none of that. The streets are brown and gray. The buildings are stained. The subway is full of broken lights. The movie is saying, look, this is what that decade actually was for a lot of people. The music you remember was playing on a radio in a room where someone could not afford rent. The third is political. And this is the part that people who call the film apolitical tend to miss. The year 1981 is not just a date. It is the beginning of a policy era that many people argue has never ended. The ideas that were put into place in that year, that the rich should be taxed less, that social programs should be cut, that personal failure is personal, that the free market is the solution to nearly everything. Those ideas did not die in 1989. They continued. They grew. They shaped the city that most Americans still live in. When you set a story in 1981, you are not making a period piece. You are naming the route. This is why the radio opening matters so much. The garbage strike is real history. New York had multiple sanitation crises in that period. The super rats are real. They were a running joke in New York media at the time, and Phillips keeps them in the dialogue as a small black punchline about a city that has forgotten how to care for itself. Arthur is going to live inside this city for 2 hours. Every time something goes wrong in his life, the city will be wrong around it. The subway will be broken. The clinic will be underfunded. The social worker will tell him her office is closing. The police will be too busy to investigate properly. The medicine will run out. None of that is about Arthur being a villain. All of it is about Arthur being a citizen. There is one more thing to notice about the setting, and it is small, but it matters. The first time you see Arthur, he is sitting in front of a mirror, putting on clown makeup for his job. He forces a smile. A single tear runs down through the white paint. And then the news on the radio keeps going, and Arthur keeps painting his face. And the movie begins. Think about what Phillips has done in those 60 seconds. He has told you the year. He has told you the city is breaking. He has told you the garbage is uncollected. He has told you the rats are winning. He has told you the man in front of the mirror has to make himself look happy in order to work. He has shown you that when Arthur tries to smile, something in him leaks out anyway. That is the whole film in 1 minute. A man being asked to perform happiness inside a system that is not going to give him anything in return. And here is the question the setting is secretly asking. What do you do with a man like that? What does a city do with him? What does a country do with him? What does a neighbor do with him? In 1981, in the version of the world Phillips has built, the answer is already being given, even before Arthur opens his mouth. You do nothing with him. You let the offices close. You let the medicine run out. You let the strike go on. You let the rats grow. You let the clown put on his own makeup alone in a dirty room. And you trust that he will keep showing up for work anyway, because he has no other choice. That trust is about to break. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Because the second thing the movie does, after showing you the city, is show you what happens when a man from that city walks out into the street with a sign in his hand and meets a group of kids who think his misery is a joke. Section 2. You don't listen, do you? The anatomy of a defunded system. There is a room in this movie that the film keeps coming back to. It is not a big room. It is not a loud room. There is no violence in it, no gun, no blood. Just a desk, a chair, a few filing cabinets, a dim overhead light, and two people sitting across from each other trying, in very different ways, to talk. The room belongs to a social worker. Her name, according to the credits, is Deborah Kane, played by Sharon Washington. She is employed by the city of Gotham. Her job is to meet with people like Arthur once a week, ask them a set of questions, check on their medication, and file the paperwork. She is tired. Her office is cluttered. The light is bad. She has too many cases and not enough hours, and by the time Arthur walks in, she has clearly been doing this too long without any real support. The movie opens with a version of this room, or close to it. Arthur sits across from her, and she asks him the questions she asks every week. How is your job going? Are you having any negative thoughts? She flips through his notebook, which is part diary, part joke book, part something much darker. She scans the pages quickly and puts it back down. Arthur tries to tell her about his life. He mentions his dream of being a stand-up comedian. He says he is not sure if he has ever mentioned this to her before. She says no, he has not. He says he thinks he did. The small disagreement just sits there. The viewer is supposed to feel it. She may have forgotten. He may have never actually told her. Either one is possible. The point is that neither of them is sure, because neither of them is really there with the other. This is the first scene of the story in the old version of the script. In the final cut of the film, Phillips moves it a little later, but the weight of it stays the same. Before anything else happens in Arthur's life, before the sign gets stolen, before the subway, before the talk show, the movie establishes what help looks like for Arthur. Help looks like a tired woman asking questions she has asked 100 times before, in an office that is about to be shut down, for a medication plan that has him on 7 different drugs at once. 7. That number comes directly from the film. She looks at her papers and reads it out loud to him. He is on 7 different medications. Not 1, not 2, 7. A man is being handled by the system, not treated by it. There is a difference, and the film knows the difference, and it wants you to feel the difference without ever saying it directly. Now the second scene in this room. This is the one that matters most. This is the scene that almost everyone who writes about this movie eventually circles back to. And for good reason. Arthur is sitting across from her again. He is trying to tell her something. He is telling her about how, until recently, he did not know if he really existed. He says there was a song on the radio about a man whose name was Carnival, and he thought that was funny, because that was almost his clown name, and it made him feel like maybe he was starting to be a person other people could see. He is trying to tell her that something is changing, that people are starting to notice him. She cuts him off. "Arthur," she says, "I have some bad news for you." He stops, and then something in him says what has probably been sitting in him for years. "You don't listen, do you? I don't think you ever really listen to me. You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts, but you don't listen." This is, in its entire form, about 4 sentences. It is not a monologue. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is said in the small, flat, exhausted voice of a man who has been meeting with this woman every week for who knows how long, and has finally understood that the appointment is a routine, not a relationship. And what she says back is the line that breaks the scene open and shows you what the whole room has really been about. She says, "They cut our funding. They are closing down our offices next week. The city has cut funding across the board. Social services is part of that. This is the last time we will be meeting." He nods. He does not argue. There is no anger in his face. Only the slow arithmetic of a man doing the math of his own life in real time. Then he asks the only question that actually matters to him in that moment. "What am I supposed to do about my medication now? Who do I talk to?" She does not have an answer, because there is no answer. The office is closing. The funding is gone. The system is not being improved. It is not being replaced. It is just ending. And with it ends his supply of the drugs that have been keeping him stable enough to hold a job, take care of his mother, and walk through the world without breaking. And then she says the line that you do not forget. She says, "They don't give a shit about people like you, Arthur. And they really don't give a shit about people like me either." Stop and look at what just happened in that sentence. The film is not putting blame on the social worker. It is doing the opposite. The social worker, who has been cold and rushed and not really listening, turns out to be a victim of the exact same system that is failing Arthur. She knows it. She names it. She is angry about it. Her office is being shut down too. Her income is about to disappear. The people who made the decision to cut the funding do not know her name, have never met her, and will not be affected in any way by the consequences. She has been understaffed and overworked for so long that by the time Arthur walks into her office, the only version of help she has left to give him is paperwork. And now even the paperwork is being taken away. This is the heart of the film's argument about society, and it is made almost entirely in 2 short scenes inside one small room. The argument goes like this. People with mental illness do not exist separately from the world around them. Their medicine does not appear by magic. Their therapy does not pay for itself. The person listening to them is an employee of a system, and that system is a set of choices made by people who are not in the room. When those choices get made badly, when funding is cut, when offices are closed, when caseloads are raised past what one person can handle, the people who lose are not the ones who made the choices. The people who lose are Arthur and Deborah and everyone like them. This is not an imagined version of history. This is 1981. This is what was actually happening in cities across America during that period. Community mental health centers, which had been set up in the 1960s to care for people who could not afford private care, were being defunded across the board. Patients were being released from state hospitals without enough local services to catch them. Social workers were being laid off. Clinics were being closed. The people on the street who talked to themselves, who could not hold jobs, who needed medication they could not afford, those people were not new. They were the people who had just been told over the course of about a decade that the country was no longer going to pay to treat them. Phillips puts all of that inside 2 scenes in one room. He does not lecture. He does not explain. He just lets Arthur sit there, ask for his medication, and get told that the answer is nobody. There is one more thing in this scene that is easy to miss and hard to forget once you see it. Right before the social worker tells him the office is closing, Arthur is trying to say something real. He is trying to say he is starting to feel visible. That for his whole life, he did not know if he really existed, and that now, maybe, he is beginning to exist. This is, in Arthur's language, a cry for help. It is the closest he has ever come to telling her something true about himself. It is the exact moment where a trained, rested, well-supported therapist might have noticed a warning sign and slowed down and asked a careful follow-up question. What he gets instead is, "Arthur, I have some bad news for you." The timing of that interruption is the film in one beat. He is trying to be heard. She is trying to do her job. Her job, because of choices made far above her pay grade, no longer includes hearing him. Now carry that image forward, because it is going to matter in every scene that comes after. Every time Arthur does something strange, something wrong, something violent, something nobody in his life can explain, the viewer has already watched him ask the system for help and be told that the system was ending. He is not medicated. He is not monitored. He is not known. He is a man on 7 different drugs who has just been told that his supply and his support are both about to vanish, and that the reason is a budget. The film is very careful here. It does not say that mental illness causes violence. Most mentally ill people are not violent. The movie is not interested in that stereotype. What it is interested in is a much narrower and more specific question. What happens to a specific person already fragile, when the small supports that were holding him upright are removed at the same time, by decisions he never got to vote on, in the name of a budget that will mostly benefit people who will never meet him. That is the question the office scene plants in the viewer, and the whole rest of the film is the slow, unhappy answer. What makes the scene land so heavily, hours later, is how gentle it is in the moment. There is no music cue telling you this is important. There is no slow camera push. Nobody yells, nobody cries. A tired woman tells a tired man that they will not be meeting anymore, and a tired man nods and goes home. That is it. That is the scene. And yet by the end of the film, when Arthur is sitting in a studio audience laughing at a joke that is about to become a murder, you will remember that room. You will remember the nod. You will remember the question about the medication. You will remember that nobody answered. Which is, in a way, the most honest thing the film can say about the society it is describing. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the medicine running out is only one half of the damage. The other half of what is about to break Arthur is not the system at all. It is what happens out on the street, in a narrow alley, to a man holding a sign and minding his own business, when the city itself decides that his misery is entertaining. Section 3. The Subway and the Ghost of Bernhard Goetz. To understand the most important scene in Joker, the one that sets the entire second half of the film into motion, you have to go back 35 years before the movie was made. You have to go back to a real train, on a real line, in a real city, on a real cold evening in late December. The city is New York. The date is December 22nd, 1984. A man named Bernhard Goetz, 37 years old, an electronics repairman with a slightly stooped posture and a quiet voice, boards a subway car in Manhattan. 4 black teenagers get on the same car. They walk toward him. One of them asks him for $5. Goetz stands up, pulls a handgun out of his jacket, and shoots all 4 of them. 2 of them are shot in the back. One is paralyzed for life. One suffers brain damage. Goetz escapes before the train reaches the next station. He gets off, walks away, and disappears into the city for 9 days before turning himself in. What happened next is the part that matters for the movie. Bernhard Goetz did not become a hated figure. He became a hero. A poll taken in early 1985 by the Daily News found that 49% of New Yorkers approved of what he had done. Only 31% disapproved. The press nicknamed him the Subway Vigilante. Strangers sent him money to help with his legal costs. A group called the Guardian Angels started patrolling the subway in his name. A board game was released based on his story. It sold 40,000 copies. Even the head of a civil rights organization described him at one point as an avenger for all of us. A New York that had been drowning in rising crime, in poor policing, in a decade of broken budgets and broken trains, looked at this awkward, nervous man with a gun and decided that he had done the thing that the city itself was supposed to be doing and had failed to do. He was eventually put on trial. He was charged with attempted murder, assault, and illegal possession of a firearm. A jury acquitted him of almost everything. The only charge that stuck was the gun charge. He served 8 months. Todd Phillips, the director of Joker, grew up in New York City. He has said in interviews that he remembers the Goetz case from his own childhood. He remembers what the city was like then. He remembers the fear and the anger, and the way the city split over what had happened. When he set out to write the origin story of a clown who would one day become Gotham's most famous villain, Phillips did not invent the idea of a quiet, forgettable man who shoots the people who are attacking him on a subway. He reached back into the real history of his own city, and he pulled the Getz case forward in time and into a movie. Knowing this changes the way you watch the subway scene in Joker. It stops being just a turning point in a fictional character's life. It becomes a careful, deliberate, rebuilt version of a moment that actually happened, with a few very important details changed on purpose. Here is the scene as it plays in the film. Arthur has just been fired from his clown job. He is in full clown makeup, still in costume, riding the subway home. Across the car, 3 young men in suits are harassing a woman. They are drunk. They are loud. They are from Wayne Investments, the company owned by Thomas Wayne, which you already know is the richest and most powerful name in Gotham. One of them offers the woman French fries. She says no. They keep pushing. She moves to another part of the train. Arthur starts laughing. He cannot help it. His condition, which the film calls pseudo-bulbar affect, makes him laugh uncontrollably under stress. His body takes over. The 3 men notice. They turn their attention from the woman to him. One of them starts singing, of all things, "Send in the clowns." They close in. They begin to beat him. They knock him down. They keep kicking him. Arthur pulls out the gun he had been given by a coworker and shoots. The first man drops. He shoots the second. That man drops too. The third man, whose name is Ryan, runs. Arthur chases him off the train and onto the platform. Ryan crawls toward the stairs. Arthur shoots him in the leg. Then he walks up to him and shoots him again. And again. In the back. This is not self-defense anymore. This is execution. Arthur runs. He finds a dirty public bathroom. The door shuts behind him. He stands there, chest heaving, and then slowly, without thinking about it, his body begins to move. He starts to dance. Alone, in a bathroom, in his ruined clown makeup, to music only he can hear. The man who walked onto that train as Arthur Fleck does not walk out. Something else does. Now look at what Phillips changed from the real Getz case, and why every single change matters. First, Bernhard Getz was white. His victims were black. That fact was the center of almost everything that happened afterwards. The case became a national argument about race, about crime, about fear of young black men in public spaces, about what kind of violence is called self-defense and what kind is called something else. Some people defended Getz as a man protecting himself. Others, including his own neighbors who came forward later, described him as a man who had used racial slurs in public and who seemed to have wanted to kill those teenagers long before they ever approached him on that train. The case was thorny. It was ugly. It was impossible to pry apart from the racial tension of 1984 New York. Phillips took that out, on purpose. In the film, the men Arthur kills are white. They are well-dressed, well-fed, and they work for a billionaire. The conflict is not between a white man and 4 black teenagers. The conflict is between a poor, sick, working-class man in a clown suit and 3 rich employees of the wealthiest family in the city. The movie takes an event that was famous for being about race in the real world and rebuilds it as an event about class. Second, the real Getz shot 4 people, and all 4 survived. In the movie, Arthur shoots 3 people, and all 3 die. The fictional version is cleaner, more brutal, and more final. Phillips does not give the viewer the comfort of survivors. He makes Arthur into a killer in one scene, and he does not let anyone back out of the room. Third, the real Getz was seen by much of the city as a lone actor. He became a symbol, but he did not start a movement. Nobody ran into the streets in clown makeup in 1985 to demand that the rich be brought down. In the movie, Arthur's act does exactly that. The news runs with the story. The eyewitnesses describe a man in clown makeup. The poor and angry people of Gotham, who have been drowning in a broken city for years, suddenly have a face. They start wearing clown masks. They start protesting. They start writing graffiti on the walls. Kill the rich. One slogan starts appearing over and over. Resist. A mass movement is born, and nobody at the top of the city, least of all Arthur himself, knows exactly how it happened. That last change is the most important one, because it is where the film makes its real argument. In the real world, the Getz case was a question about one man and what he did. In the film, the subway shooting is a question about a whole city and what it has been quietly preparing to do for years. The three businessmen Arthur kills are not random. They are employees of Wayne Investments. They are rich. They are drunk in the middle of the evening. They are harassing a woman in public. They beat a stranger for laughing. When they die, the movement that rises up does not rise because Arthur is a hero, because nobody in the city knows who Arthur is. It rises because three men, who represented every single thing that Gotham's poor had been told to resent, were suddenly dead. And somebody in a mask had made it happen, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like the direction of the violence had flipped. This is why the scene is the pivot of the entire film. Everything before it has shown you Arthur being a victim. The sign, the alley, the social worker, the closing office, the missing medication, the mother who cannot be a mother. Everything after it shows Arthur being something else, and the city around him being something else too. The garbage strike is still going on. The rats are still winning. Thomas Wayne is still running for mayor. But now there is a crack. And through the crack, people are starting to come out. Pay close attention to what the film does with the public reaction. You never see a scene of a group of citizens formally deciding to dress up in clown masks. There is no organizing committee. There is no leader. What you see, instead, is a news anchor reporting that anti-rich feeling is rising in the city. You see graffiti on the walls, "Kill the rich," clowns on the front of every newspaper. You see Arthur's co-worker Randall, in a short conversation at the job, shrugging and saying he thinks the guy who did it is a hero. 3 less pricks in Gotham City, Randall says. Only 1 million more to go. You see strangers on the bus and in the streets wearing clown makeup, without any explanation of how they got the idea. Because the explanation is obvious. People have been angry for a long time. They were just waiting for a symbol. Arthur did not give them a symbol on purpose. He was having the worst day of his life. He had just been fired. He was being beaten by strangers. He had a loaded gun in his jacket and no plan. The movement that forms around his act is not something he created. It is something the city of Gotham had been stitching together in private for years, and it only needed one match to show itself in public. That is the real argument of the subway scene. Violence is not the same thing as a movement. But a society that ignores its poor, abandons its mentally ill, cuts its social services, and lets its rich grow unlimited while its streets fill with garbage is a society that is building pressure inside itself, whether it knows it or not. Pressure needs a release. When it finds one, the release does not stop to check whether the man holding the match is a hero. There is one more piece of this scene that deserves attention. It is the bathroom dance. After Arthur runs from the subway, the film does not show him panicking. It does not show him crying. It does not show him calling the police, or trying to clean himself up, or doing any of the things a normal man would do after his first murder. Instead, he ducks into a dirty public bathroom and stands there. And the music comes up, a slow cello theme written by the composer Hildur Gudnadottir before the movie was even shot. Arthur's body starts to move, not like a person, like something being born. This dance was not in the original script. It did not exist on paper. Phillips has said in interviews that he played Gudnadottir's music for Phoenix on set, and that Phoenix, who was struggling to find the character, simply started to move. Phillips watched him dance, turned to him, and said that was the scene. They wrote it into the film right there. 250 crew members were waiting outside the door. What was supposed to be a breakdown scene became a ritual. A slow, strange, unscripted ritual of a man discovering that the thing inside him that he had been trying to push down his whole life was maybe not a problem. Maybe it was the point. When the dance ends, Arthur looks into the cracked bathroom mirror. The light flickers. The man looking back at him is still wearing the clown makeup, but something in the eyes has moved. A door has opened, and whatever was on the other side of the door is now in the room. The reason the film is so careful about this moment is that it marks a split that it wants the viewer to feel without being told. Before the subway, Arthur is a victim. The film goes out of its way to make him sympathetic. You are meant to ache for him. You are meant to hope, against evidence, that things might still get better. After the subway, the film changes. Arthur is still sympathetic, in the sense that you still understand him. You still know where he came from. You still see the 1,000 small failures that built him. But you cannot hope for him in the same way anymore. The door has opened. Something has come through. And the film, to its credit, does not pretend otherwise. The Goetz case, in the real world, eventually faded. Bernhard Goetz served his 8 months, got out, lived a quiet life, and slipped back into the strange fog of New York history. The shooting he committed did not make the city better. It did not fix the subway. It did not change the economy. It did not bring down the rich. It just happened, and then it ended, and life in the city went on being what it had been. The film is asking whether that is still true. Whether, in a city angry enough, hungry enough, ignored enough, a single violent act stays a single violent act, or whether it becomes the first page of a chapter that the people in charge were not ready to read. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Which brings the film to its next quiet problem, because the people in charge, in Gotham, are about to be asked to respond. The richest man in the city, the man running for mayor, the man whose own company employed the 3 men who died on that train, is about to walk in front of a television camera and explain what he thinks of the people in the streets. And what he says, and the exact word he uses, is going to light the rest of the city on fire. Section 4. Thomas Wayne's Clowns. The language of contempt. A man is sitting on a couch. He is watching television. His mother is next to him. The television is showing the morning news, and the news is about what happened on the subway the night before. 3 men from Wayne Investments were shot dead. The killer was wearing clown makeup. The city is talking about it. Graffiti is showing up on the walls. Kill the rich. The newscaster says there is a groundswell of anti-rich feeling in Gotham. The newscaster uses the phrase, "less fortunate brethren." He says it is almost as if the less fortunate citizens are taking the side of the killer. Then the camera cuts to the guest on the show. Thomas Wayne, billionaire, owner of Wayne Investments, mayoral candidate, the most powerful name in the city. What Wayne says next is maybe the single most important speech any character delivers in the entire film, and most people watching do not even remember it the first time through. It passes quickly. It sounds like a politician giving a routine answer to a hard question. But the words he chooses are not routine. The words he chooses are a weapon. And once he fires that weapon, the entire shape of the movie changes. The interviewer asks him about the eyewitness report. A man in clown makeup. Someone in a mask. What does Wayne think about that? Wayne leans back. He gives a small, confident smile, and he says the following. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask. Someone who is envious of those more fortunate than themselves, yet they are too scared to show their own face. And until those kinds of people change for the better, those of us who made something of our lives will always look at those who haven't as nothing but clowns. Stop the tape right there. Read that sentence again. This time, look at every single word he chose. Coward, hides behind a mask, envious, scared, those kinds of people. Change for the better, those who made something of our lives, those who haven't, clowns. Every single phrase in that paragraph is doing work. Every single phrase is telling the poor of Gotham what their billionaire mayoral candidate actually thinks of them. And Thomas Wayne, sitting in a studio with his hair combed and his suit pressed and the eye of the camera on him, does not seem to realize that the entire city is listening. Go through it slowly. A coward is someone who refuses to face something they should face. Wayne is calling the killer a coward for hiding behind makeup. But he is also, without saying it out loud, calling every person in the city who is too scared of the police, too scared of losing their job, too scared of getting beaten in an alley, a coward for not standing up to the system that is grinding them down. Cowardice, in Wayne's mouth, is the thing poor people do when they fail to be rich and happy about it. Envious is the word that gives the whole game away. Envious of those more fortunate than themselves. Wayne is not saying the killer was angry. He is not saying the killer was scared. He is not saying the killer was sick. He is saying the killer was jealous. And by saying it was jealousy, Wayne is telling every poor person watching that their problem is not hunger, or rent, or medicine, or sanity, or violence, or fear. Their problem is that they wanted what he has, and they could not have it, and they turned sour because of it. That one word, envious, does more damage than anything else he says. It takes every real complaint the poor of Gotham have ever had and reframes it as a childish tantrum. Those kinds of people. Not a group, not citizens, not neighbors, not fellow residents of the city he is trying to run. Those kinds of people. The phrase places a wall between Wayne and everyone outside his own class, and that wall is a wall he builds on purpose. Because a mayor who stands on the same side as the poor cannot justify being a billionaire. Change for the better. Two words that carry an enormous assumption. Wayne is saying the problem is with the poor, not with the system. The poor need to change. They need to become better. Once they do, maybe they will be treated with something other than pity. The message is simple and old and very quiet. Your suffering is your fault. Your fall is your failure. The system did not fail you. You failed the system. Those who made something of our lives, here is the center of the worldview. Wayne believes, without any question, that he is where he is because of who he is. He is a billionaire because he made something of himself. The people who are not billionaires because they failed to make something of themselves. There is no consideration of the fact that he inherited wealth. No consideration of the fact that an entire city's economy is rigged to help the rich stay rich and keep the poor in place. No consideration of the fact that the man shooting up his subway cars was, only hours before, a working clown taking care of his sick mother on 7 different medications. Those details do not enter Wayne's mind, because Wayne's mind has a clean and comfortable story about why he is on a couch in a studio and somebody else is in the gutter. The story is that he earned it and they did not. And then the word, the one that matters more than all the others, the one the whole city is going to hear. Clowns. Nothing but clowns. Think about what that word does in the mouth of Thomas Wayne on a live television broadcast in 1981. A clown, before this movie, is a sad figure in a funny suit. A man who paints a smile on his face for a living. A man who performs for children. A man who is paid very little to make other people feel good. A clown is a joke. A clown is somebody you laugh at. A clown is not a person you take seriously. Thomas Wayne has just told the entire city of Gotham that the poor are not people. They are clowns. They are figures to laugh at. They are costumes without insides. They are not real in the way that Wayne is real. And somewhere, in a small apartment in a bad part of Gotham, a man is sitting on a couch next to his mother, watching this. The man is on 7 medications. The man has just lost his job. The man has just killed 3 men on a subway, and he does not yet fully understand that he has done it. The man's mother, who still believes Thomas Wayne is the father of her son, is nodding along to the broadcast because she still thinks he is a good man. And the man, Arthur Fleck, is hearing the word clowns out of the mouth of a billionaire who is about to run the city. And the word is not just hitting him. It is hitting everyone in Gotham who is currently wearing a clown uniform for minimum wage, or who has ever been treated like a joke, or who has ever stood on a street corner holding a sign while kids ran past laughing, or who has ever been told by somebody richer than them that their problems are the result of their own failure to be more. And every single one of those people now has a word they can hold on to. Because the word is not just an insult. The word is a name. Thomas Wayne has just given the uprising its identity. Watch what happens in the next minutes of screen time. The television news starts running footage of graffiti. Kill the rich, spray painted on a storefront. Resist, scrawled across a billboard. Slogans against Wall Street, written in subway stations. People on the streets start wearing clown makeup. People on buses wearing plastic clown masks. A whole city begins to turn the insult back into a banner. If Thomas Wayne thinks we are clowns, fine. Then we are clowns. Then the clowns are coming. Then the clowns are the ones who run this place. Wayne did not intend to start a movement. Nobody who says something that cruel on live television ever intends to start a movement. Wayne intended to position himself as the tough, no-nonsense candidate who would clean up Gotham. He intended to flex a little for the cameras. He intended to show the donors that he would not go soft on crime. What he actually did, without knowing it, was hand the poor of his own city the symbol they had been waiting for. He gave them a flag. This is maybe the most quietly brilliant piece of writing in the whole film, because the movie never announces what Wayne has done. It does not cut to a character saying, "Can you believe he called us clowns?" It does not put a big arrow on it. It just lets the word do its work, scene by scene, minute by minute, as the city around Arthur slowly paints its own face and starts to march. There is a layer underneath this scene that most viewers do not think about on the first watch, and it is worth slowing down for. Thomas Wayne, in every other version of the Batman story that has ever been told, is supposed to be good. He is supposed to be the doctor who treats the poor. He is supposed to be the philanthropist who gives back. He is supposed to be the kind of father whose death makes his son dedicate his life to saving Gotham. Joker takes that expectation and flips it. This Thomas Wayne is not a bad man in the way a comic book villain is bad. He is something worse. He is a man who believes he is good while doing harm. He is convinced of his own decency. He is convinced that the reason he is rich is that he deserves to be rich. He is convinced that his contempt for the poor is not contempt at all, only common sense. And because he is convinced, he has no guard on his mouth. He says the word clowns because he does not even realize the word is dangerous. He cannot see the power of the thing he just spat at his own city. This is a very specific kind of villain. He is not cackling. He is not plotting. He is smiling on a morning show and saying what he actually thinks. And what he actually thinks is that people like Arthur are not really people. The film is arguing that this kind of villain, the casual one, the one who does harm with a smile because he has never once imagined the world from the other side, is more dangerous than any costume. Look closer at the Thomas Wayne we see throughout the film. When Arthur finally gets face to face with him, in the bathroom of a private screening room where Wayne is watching Modern Times with a bunch of rich friends, Wayne does not try to understand who is standing in front of him. He does not ask a single real question. He calls Arthur's dead mother crazy. He tells Arthur, in the middle of a conversation about whether or not they are related, "Look, Belle, I'm not your father. What is wrong with you?" He accuses Arthur of wanting money. When Arthur laughs, because his condition makes him laugh, Wayne asks him if he thinks this is funny. Then Wayne punches him in the face. That is the man who goes on television and says poor people should change for the better. That is the man who says he is considering running for mayor because Gotham has lost its way. The movie is asking whether a man like this, with a fist this ready, with a worldview this closed, is capable of leading anyone other than himself. The answer the movie gives, quietly, is no. And there is one more piece of context that the film is leaning on, even if it never names it. The year is 1981. A new president has just been elected on a message that government is the problem, that the free market is the answer, that the rich should be taxed less, and the poor should work harder. The economic program of that moment, which history has many names for, was based on the promise that if the very wealthy got wealthier, everyone underneath them would eventually benefit. That promise did not come true for most people in the 10 years that followed the movie's setting. It did not come true for most of the decades after that, either. Thomas Wayne, in this film, is a billionaire running for public office on exactly this promise. He is the human face of the idea that the rich know best. He is saying, "Trust me, I made something of myself. I can do the same for the city." What the film is doing, very carefully, is showing you what that promise looks like from the bottom of the ladder. It does not look like hope. It looks like a man on television telling you that your pain is your own fault, and that, by the way, you are a clown. Thomas Wayne never sees the bullet coming. When it arrives, it does not come from Arthur. It comes from a stranger in a clown mask, in an alley, outside a movie theater. In the middle of a riot, Arthur accidentally started by saying yes to an invitation to go on television. But that is the end of the story. The middle of the story, the part that makes the end possible, is this morning show interview. This is the sentence that puts the first crack in Wayne's own mayoral dream and, not much later, in his own life. This is the word that set the city on fire. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The clowns came because Thomas Wayne named them clowns. And then, weeks later, with the city boiling, Arthur was going to accept an invitation from a talk show he had watched every night of his adult life. He was going to put on the suit. He was going to put on the makeup. He was going to walk onto a set under bright lights in front of a live studio audience and a man he had idolized since he was a child. And in that studio, with the cameras rolling, he was finally going to say out loud what everyone in the city had been trying to say for years. Section 5. The Murray Franklin Monologue. What Arthur actually says about society. The Murray Franklin Show is taped live before a studio audience in beautiful downtown Gotham City. That is the sentence the announcer says at the top of every episode, and you hear it many times across the film. Because Arthur Fleck has heard it many times across his life. He has sat on the couch next to his mother, night after night, and watched Murray open the show. He has studied the way Murray moves, the way Murray laughs, the way Murray jokes with the audience. Murray, in Arthur's head, is not a stranger on television. Murray is the closest thing Arthur has to a father. That is the context you have to hold in your mind to understand what happens when Arthur finally walks onto that stage. He is not just a guest. He is a son walking up to the man he has imagined for his entire adult life would someday see him and recognize him and say, "You are good. You are one of us. Come sit at the big table." Arthur is not going on the show to kill Murray Franklin. Arthur is going on the show to be loved by him. That is what makes the scene so painful. Because Arthur, sick and unmedicated and already past the point of no return, still believes that love is possible in this room. And the audience watching the movie already knows that it is not. He is introduced as Joker because he asks to be. This detail matters. It is Arthur himself who asks Murray, before the show goes live, to introduce him by that name. It is a reference to the way Murray mocked him on a previous broadcast, calling him a joker, while the audience laughed at his failed stand-up routine. Arthur is taking the word back. He is walking into the room holding the insult like a flag. The opening beat of the appearance is uncomfortable on purpose. Arthur walks out in a red suit and green vest and clown makeup, pauses, grabs a woman in the front row and kisses her on the mouth. The audience laughs, not because it is funny, but because they do not yet know what else to do. Murray is smiling, but his smile is thinner than usual. He can feel that something is off. He tries to steer the interview. He asks Arthur about his mother. Arthur tells a story about how she always told him to smile and put on a happy face. She says, "I was put here to spread joy and laughter." Murray says, "Your mother must love you very much." Arthur nods. Then Murray says, "So I know you are a comedian. You have been working on new material. You want to tell us a joke?" Arthur pulls out his notebook. The audience laughs. Murray laughs. He is a guy with a book of jokes. Arthur starts to read. The jokes are bad. They are dark. "Knock, knock. It is the police, ma'am. Your son's been hit by a drunk driver. He is dead." The audience goes quiet. Murray tries to move the conversation. This is the moment where a better talk show host, with a better producer, would cut to a commercial. Murray keeps going because the tension in the studio is, in its own terrible way, good television. And then Arthur starts to say the thing he has come to say. He starts with the subway. He confesses. He tells Murray and the live audience and every television set in Gotham that he was the one who killed the 3 young men on the train. Murray does not believe him at first. He says, "Okay, I am waiting for the punchline." Arthur says, "There is no punchline. It is not a joke." The audience starts to turn. There are boos. There are shouts. Someone in the crowd yells to get this guy out of here. Murray looks to the producers. Arthur is already talking again. He is not going to stop. He has been quiet for 30+ years. This is the moment where the quiet breaks. What comes out of his mouth now is the speech that the entire film has been building toward. Read it slowly. Every sentence matters. Every sentence is the argument of the whole movie. Why is everybody so upset about these guys? If it was me dying on the sidewalk, you would walk right over me. I pass you every day and you don't notice me. But these guys, what, because Thomas Wayne went and cried about them on TV? Stop. Look at what he just said. He is not defending his crime. He is doing something much harder. He is pointing at the double standard that made the crime into a scandal. He is saying, if a poor man dies on the street, nobody writes his name in the paper. Nobody goes on television. Nobody holds a moment of silence. Nobody says the city has lost its way. But if 3 rich men die, suddenly it is a tragedy worth national coverage, because a billionaire cared enough to weep in front of a camera. Arthur, who has been invisible his entire life, is saying out loud what every invisible person has ever known. Some lives count, others do not. And the line between counting and not counting has very little to do with how the person lived, and very much to do with how much money the person had. Murray tries to cut him off. He asks Arthur if he has a problem with Thomas Wayne. And Arthur says, yes. And then comes the center of the speech. Have you seen what it's like out there, Murray? Do you ever actually leave the studio? Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy. You think men like Thomas Wayne ever think what it's like to be someone like me? To be somebody but themselves? They don't. They think that we'll just sit there and take it like good little boys. That we won't werewolf and go wild. This is not the speech of a villain. This is the speech of a man describing his country. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy. A city full of people yelling and screaming past each other, convinced that their own pain is the only real pain, convinced that everyone else is either a threat or a fool. Arthur has spent 2 hours of the movie living inside exactly this, being pushed past by strangers on a bus, being kicked by teenagers in an alley, being laughed at in a bar, being told by the social worker that nobody in charge gives a shit about him, being told by his boss that the other workers think he is weird and do not want him around. He has been this invisible man for a very long time. And now he is telling Murray and the cameras and the city that the problem is not him. The problem is a country that has stopped practicing the basic skill of seeing another person as a person. The specific image he uses is important. They think we'll just sit there and take it, like good little boys. That we won't werewolf and go wild. The word werewolf is not random. A werewolf is a normal man who has been pushed past some breaking point by the moon, by forces outside himself, and who transforms into something that the world was never ready to see. Arthur is describing his own transformation in one word. He was a good little boy. He took what the world handed him for decades. And now, because the world kept pushing, the wolf has come out. The fault is not the wolf's. The fault belongs to the hands that kept pushing. Murray is angry now. He has stopped trying to save the interview. He turns on Arthur. He says, "You finished." It is so much self-pity, Arthur. You sound like you are making excuses for killing those young men. Not everybody, and I will tell you this, not everyone is awful. Arthur says, "You're awful, Murray." And then he names him directly. Playing my video, inviting me on the show. You just wanted to make fun of me. You're just like the rest of them. This is a real accusation. Murray is not the worst person in the movie. Murray is not a billionaire. Murray is not a mayor. Murray is a talk show host who saw a bad stand-up tape and decided to play it on the air, night after night, to laugh at the sad man on screen. Murray never met Arthur until this day. Murray did not think of him as a person. Murray thought of him as content. Arthur has come all this way to sit across from the man he imagined was a father. And Murray's face has told him, in about 20 minutes of interview, that Murray did not invite him here to help him. Murray invited him here because the freak show is good for ratings. This is the part of the speech that audiences sometimes misread as just Arthur being crazy. It is not. It is Arthur naming the machine. The talk show is a machine. The newsroom is a machine. The chain of networks that stretched from Arthur's bombed stand-up set to his bedroom television to the phone call from Murray's booker to this chair was never a chain of concern. It was a chain of use. And the end of that chain is Arthur sitting under stage lights in clown makeup, about to hit the buzzer on his own life in front of the people who helped him get there. Then he says the line that rings out loudest. What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? Murray does not want to hear the answer. He says, "I think we are done here now." He says, "Call the police, Gene. Call the police." Arthur says the answer anyway. "I'll tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve." And he shoots Murray in the head on live television. Here is the part that matters most about this speech, and it is the part that is easiest to get wrong. The speech is correct about the problem, and the speech is wrong about the solution. Both things are true at the same time. The film is not asking the viewer to agree with Arthur that violence is the answer. The film is asking the viewer to notice that Arthur's description of the disease is a description that any honest person would recognize. A country where nobody is civil anymore. A country where nobody thinks about what it is like to be the other guy. A country where a billionaire's tears count more than a poor man's life. A country where a mentally ill loner gets abandoned by the one office that was supposed to keep him stable. A country where the talk show plays his worst moment over and over because his worst moment gets laughs. Every single word of Arthur's diagnosis is true. He is a sick man, and his diagnosis is still true. This is the hardest thing the movie asks you to sit with. You are not allowed to dismiss what he is saying just because you cannot support what he is about to do. You have to hold both in the same hand. The problem is real. The response is monstrous. Both are real. Both are the film. The line at the end, "You get what you fucking deserve," is not a conclusion the film is endorsing. It is the worst possible response to a real observation. It is what happens when a society ignores a person for long enough that the person stops believing in any answer other than violence. The speech is the movie's thesis in two parts. The first part is the world Arthur has described, and that world is our world. The second part is the gun, and the film is clear that the gun does not fix anything. In the minutes after Arthur pulls the trigger, the audience scatters. Studio staff run. Murray's body hits the ground. The news breaks. The riots explode across the city. Thomas Wayne and his wife Martha are gunned down in an alley by a stranger in a clown mask in front of their young son, Bruce. That child, standing over his dead parents, is how this origin story pays a debt to the comic book it came from. The movie does not celebrate it. It shows it like a reckoning. The same violence that Arthur unleashed on Murray comes back around and takes the man whose word, clowns, lit the whole city. And somewhere in the rubble, a boy who will one day wear a cape is standing over the worst night of his life. So what did Arthur actually say about society? Read his words one more time. Strip out the gun. Strip out the makeup. Strip out the confession. Read only the diagnosis. He said people walk past each other like strangers. He said the powerful do not imagine the lives of the powerless. He said the poor are expected to sit quietly and take what is done to them. He said the rich get mourned and the poor get stepped over. He said the media uses sick people for laughs. He said a country is in trouble when nobody is civil anymore and nobody thinks about what it is like to be the other guy. If you took that paragraph, stripped of its violence, and printed it as an essay in a magazine, it would not read as the speech of a madman. It would read as a description of a social crisis. The film gives those words to the worst possible speaker, in the worst possible moment, on purpose. Because the film is asking a hard question. If the diagnosis is correct, does the madness of the speaker make it wrong? If a broken man is the only person in the room willing to say the broken thing out loud, is the room allowed to ignore him because he is broken? That question is the movie, and the movie does not answer it. It hands it to the viewer and lets the viewer carry it home. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Arthur's speech is not the last word the film has on society. There is one more layer, and it sits outside the studio, and it is quieter and sadder than anything Arthur screams at Murray. Because while Arthur is talking about the television mocking him, he is still, himself, a product of that television. And the man who pulled his worst moment out of obscurity and put it on a national broadcast so that the whole city could laugh was not actually the worst villain in Arthur's life. He was only the last link in a much longer chain. A chain that starts, the moment you think about it carefully, inside the television itself. Section 6. The Media Machine. Murray Franklin and the Economy of Mockery. To understand what the movie is actually saying about television, you have to go back to the first time Arthur watches The Murray Franklin Show. And you have to look carefully at what he is doing while he watches it. He is not just watching. He is living inside it. Arthur is on the couch next to his mother, Penny. The apartment is small and dim and falling apart. The television is the brightest thing in the room. And on the screen, Murray Franklin is doing what Murray Franklin always does, which is stand in a warm studio under bright lights, laugh with a live audience, crack jokes about the mayor and the super rats and the garbage strike, and introduce guests who arrive smiling and leave smiling. Murray is not sick. Murray is not poor. Murray is not lonely. Murray is the opposite of everything Arthur is, and that is the point. What Arthur is doing as he watches is building a fantasy. A long, detailed, scene-by-scene fantasy. At one point, the film takes you inside it. In the daydream, Murray picks Arthur out of the studio audience. He invites him up. He hugs him. He calls him son. He says he would give up everything he has, everything he built, for one moment with a son like Arthur. The crowd cheers. Arthur, in the fantasy, cries. He has a father. He matters. Somebody sees him. None of that is real. The real Murray, the Murray who exists in the world of the movie, has never heard Arthur's name, has never seen his face, would not recognize him on a street corner. But that does not stop Arthur from experiencing the fantasy as real. He has been watching this man for decades. He has studied him. He has listened to his voice more than he has listened to his own mother's voice. He has absorbed Murray's rhythms, his jokes, his kindness toward his guests. And he has slowly let all of that fill the empty space where a father should have been. Television has, without meaning to, raised Arthur. That is the ground floor of the film's argument about media. Before the argument gets sharp or angry, it first asks you to notice something gentle and sad. A lonely, sick man, sitting with a mother who cannot really mother him, has turned to the television to find a parent. And the television has given him one. The fact that the parent is not real does not matter. The comfort was real. The voice in the room every night was real. The feeling of belonging to something, even just a studio audience on the other side of the glass, was real. Now, with that ground floor in place, watch what happens when the machine decides to use him. Arthur gets invited to an open mic night at Pogo's Comedy Club. He goes up on stage. His laughing condition, the uncontrollable fits that come on under stress, starts immediately. He cannot get through his first setup without collapsing into laughter so hard that the audience stops laughing with him and starts watching in discomfort. A few people chuckle. Most go quiet. Somebody in the audience records the whole thing on a video camera. Arthur does not know who. He does not know why. The tape leaves the club. Days later, the tape arrives on the desk of the Murray Franklin show. This is the point where the film becomes quietly brutal, because the film is specific about how this decision gets made. Murray does not pull a sad man out of the shadows to help him. Murray does not bring the tape up as part of a segment about the struggles of young comedians trying to break in. Murray looks at the tape, sees a man in a cheap suit laughing hysterically at his own bad jokes, and decides that this is something his audience will laugh at. He runs it on air. Watch the exact words Murray uses when he introduces the clip. He says, "In a world where everybody thinks they could do my job, we got this videotape from Pogo's Comedy Club right here in Gotham. Here's a guy who thinks if you just keep laughing, it'll somehow make you funny. Check out this joker. Check out this joker." That is where the name comes from. Not a crime boss, not a henchman, not a rival. A talk show host, sitting behind a desk in a warm studio, looking for something to fill a segment, points at a poor man's nervous breakdown and says, "Check out this joker." And the live audience laughs. Because they are supposed to laugh. Because the host laughed first. Because the segment is framed as comedy, and the frame tells the audience how to feel. Arthur is at home on his couch. He is watching the show he has watched every night for years, and his own face comes up on the screen. His own laugh plays back to him through his own television. And the man he has imagined as his father is laughing at him. Think about what that does to a person. Not politically, not philosophically, just emotionally. The one steady voice in Arthur's life, the voice he fell asleep to, the voice he trusted more than any voice in his real world, is now a voice laughing at his worst moment. The father has not just failed to show up. The father has turned around and pointed and called his son a joker. Arthur is not angry at first. Arthur is devastated. The movie gives you his face in that moment. He is not screaming. He is not punching the wall. He is quiet. Something in his chest has just come apart. The thing he needed the television for was never really there, and now the television itself has told him so. The fantasy is over. And here is where the film's argument about media turns from sad to serious. Because the machine is not done with Arthur after one broadcast. The clip works. The audience reacts. Murray decides to keep running it. He plays it again. He plays it again. He comes back to it across multiple episodes. Each time he plays it, he gets new laughs. Each time he plays it, more people see Arthur's face. Each time he plays it, the man on the screen becomes less of a person and more of a meme. He becomes a character. He becomes a bit. He becomes the recurring punchline of the show he used to love. This is not a fictional process. This is how television worked in 1981, and it is how the much larger internet works now. A person has a bad moment. The bad moment gets captured. The capture gets shared. The share becomes content. The content gets laughed at. The laughter brings in attention. The attention brings in money. The person, the actual human being on the other end of the tape, disappears completely underneath the product that has been made from their suffering. Nobody making money off the clip has any relationship with the person in it. Nobody in the audience knows that person's name. The only job the person is allowed to do now is to be looked at and laughed at, forever, without consent. The film is saying something sharp about this, and it is saying it inside a simple scene on a couch. It is saying that there are two kinds of damage being done to Arthur at the same time. The first is the damage done by a society that ignored him. That is, the social worker, the budget cuts, the missing medicine, the mother who cannot mother him, the boss who does not protect him. That damage is the system that created him. The second damage is the damage done by a culture that notices him only long enough to laugh at him. That is Murray. That is the tape running on a loop. That is the studio audience laughing at the saddest man in town while he sits alone in an apartment watching himself be reduced to entertainment. Both kinds of damage matter, but the second one is sharper because it adds something cruel to what was already painful. The system made him invisible. The media makes him a joke. The system said, nobody cares about you. The media says we care enough to watch you fall apart. Again and again, as long as you keep doing it on camera. Now follow the chain, because this is where the movie really closes the trap. The booker for the Murray Franklin show, a woman named Shirley Woods, calls Arthur on the phone. She tells him that Murray played his clip, and the audience reaction has been amazing. She asks if he would like to come on the show. He will get to talk to Murray, maybe do some of his act. Is that something he would be interested in? Arthur says yes. He says yes immediately. He says yes because he does not understand yet that the invitation is not a ladder. The invitation is a trap that he has been helping to build. Shirley does not tell him the full plan. The show is not inviting him because Murray suddenly believes in him. The show is inviting him because the clip went viral in the 1981 sense of viral, which meant it got talked about in offices and bars and on the street, and the producers saw a chance to monetize the talk. They are not trying to help Arthur. They are trying to stretch the bid. Bring the sad clown out from behind the glass and put him in front of a live audience, so that the audience can laugh at him in person. Make him real for a moment. Let the cameras watch him laugh his terrible laugh. Let Murray play straight man to a walking punchline. Sell the ads. Arthur does not see any of that. Arthur sees the doorway to the only home he ever really believed in. Arthur sees his chance to sit across from the man he has imagined as his father, and finally, at last, be acknowledged as a person in front of all of Gotham. The film is being very careful here. It is not saying that Murray is evil. Murray is not cackling. Murray is not plotting. Murray is doing what talk show hosts do. He is looking for a ratings bump. He is reading an audience. He is going where the laughs are. The evil, the film argues, is not in any one person on the show. The evil is in the structure. The evil is in the way the machine turns a poor man's collapse into a franchise, and then expects the poor man to be grateful when the machine finally calls him up and offers him a chair. This is maybe the quietest and sharpest part of the film's social argument. The two pieces fit together like a lock and key. The system produces Arthur. The media mocks Arthur. The system does not care enough about him to help him. The media cares enough about him to laugh at him. Both of those things happen in the same life, in the same city, in the same month. And the man in the middle of them, already sick, already unmedicated, already past the last safety net the government ever offered him, is being broken from both directions at once. Look at what the film is doing with Arthur's own words, later, under the studio lights. When he looks at Murray and says, "You're awful, Murray," the line is not just about Murray. It is about every person in the chain who pulled that videotape forward. The person who filmed him at Pogo's without asking. The producer who played the tape. The booker who called him with a friendly voice and invited him on the show, knowing full well what the plan was. The studio audience that showed up to laugh. The channel that put it on the air. Murray is the face of the chain, so Murray takes the accusation. But the accusation is for everybody whose living depends on turning a sick man into a bit. Think about how many of those people have ever been held responsible in real life. The movie, more than anything else in this part, is quietly noting that nobody in the machine ever has to pay. The producer goes home. The booker makes more calls. The audience goes back to their jobs. The host books a new guest. The sick man on the screen goes back to being whatever he was before the cameras found him. Except now, he has a new wound that never really closes. The clip lives on. The bit lives on. The name Joker, invented offhand by a host in a segment, sticks forever. There is a detail in this part of the film that is easy to miss, and it tells you everything about what the machine does to the people it uses. When Arthur finally arrives at the studio, before the show goes live, he meets Murray backstage. Murray is friendly. He smiles. He chats. He does not apologize for the tape. He does not even acknowledge that Arthur might have been hurt by the clip. For Murray, the tape was not a personal thing. The tape was a bit. A bit is not supposed to wound. A bit is supposed to get laughs, and then you move on to the next bit. So Murray treats Arthur like any other guest. He is pleasant. He is professional. He is warm in the small, empty way that a professional is warm with a stranger he will forget by tomorrow. Arthur is experiencing this meeting as one of the most important moments of his life. Murray is experiencing it as the setup for a segment. The two men are in the same room, 3 feet apart, and they are not in the same conversation at all. This is the film's most honest picture of the media. Not a villain laughing in a tower. Just a polite guy with a desk, doing his job. running a machine that chews people up as a matter of course, and going home at the end of the night without having to think about the ones it chewed up that week. The cruelty is not loud. The cruelty is casual. The cruelty is built into the way the job works. And that is why, when Arthur pulls the trigger on Murray, on live television, in front of his own audience, the moment is so much more than a murder. The film is not saying Murray deserved to die. The film is very clear that he did not. What the film is saying is that the machine Murray served was never going to be interrupted by polite conversation. The only thing that ever made the machine stop in the world of the movie was a sick man putting a gun in the middle of its show and pulling the trigger on live air. That is not a recommendation. That is a diagnosis. The film is pointing at the machine and saying, "Look how hard it is to stop this thing. Look what it takes. Look who has to break and how for a studio audience to finally go quiet." When the audience runs screaming from the studio after the shot, when the cameras cut to news anchors struggling to process what just happened, when footage of Arthur's rant plays on every television in Gotham at once, something changes in the city. The machine that had been using Arthur as content for months has just, in one moment, lost control of him. He walked into their machine and used it to broadcast a message the machine would never have broadcast on purpose. And the city, the angry, tired, ignored city, finally had a voice on every screen. And the voice was his. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And somewhere in that same city, miles from the studio, a body is already moving in a way that nobody, not even Arthur himself, had ever seen before. A body is finding a new language. A body is saying, without words, what the mouth could never quite get right. And to understand that body, the film is about to ask you to watch 3 dances. Section 7. The dance scenes. What Arthur's body is telling us. Arthur Fleck does not have many ways to tell the truth. His mouth is broken. When he tries to speak in normal conversation, he often flinches, stumbles, apologizes, looks down. When he tries to tell a joke, the words come out wrong. When he tries to laugh, his laugh attacks him before the joke has even landed. Words, for Arthur, are a door that never opens the way he wants it to. Every sentence he offers the world comes out of him broken somehow, and the world responds by looking away, or laughing at him, or hitting him, or closing the office where he could have been heard. So his body starts doing the talking for him. This is the part of the movie that is easy to miss if you are only listening. You have to watch. The whole arc of Arthur's transformation is written in 3 separate dances, and each dance says something different, and together they tell you everything you need to know about who he is and who he becomes. The first dance is in a public bathroom. Arthur has just killed 3 men on the subway. He has run through dark tunnels. He has pushed through a crowd of late-night commuters. He has made it into a small, dirty bathroom tucked away somewhere in the station. The door shuts behind him. He is alone. He is still in full clown makeup. His hair is still green. His chest is heaving. He has a gun in his hand, and the hand is shaking, and his face is wet with sweat and paint that has started to run. This is the moment where, in the original script, Arthur was supposed to break down. He was supposed to panic. He was supposed to stand in front of the mirror, talk to his reflection, hold the gun to his own head, and pull the trigger on an empty chamber. That is what the writers originally put on paper. That is what was supposed to happen next. It is not what happened. What happened was, on set, The director played a piece of music for Joaquin Phoenix through an earpiece. The music was a slow, deep cello theme, written by a composer named Hildur Guðnadóttir. She had written it months before, based only on her feeling after reading the script. The director played the theme, and Phoenix, who had been struggling to find the character for months, closed his eyes, and his body started to move on its own. He did not choreograph the dance. Nobody told him what steps to take. Nobody told him to raise his arms like that. Nobody told him to let his head fall back and his hands rise up. He just started moving, slowly, like a person underwater. Like a person remembering a song from a dream they had as a child. The director watched for a while. Then he said, that was the scene. So they threw out the script and filmed what Phoenix was already doing. And that is what you see in the movie. The first dance. The bathroom dance. Now pay attention to what is happening in his body as he moves. This is a man who has just killed 3 people.
His normal response should be shock, grief, panic, maybe vomiting.
What you see instead is something much stranger. His body looks like it has been carrying a weight for 40 years and has just, for the first time, put the weight down. His shoulders, which have been hunched through the entire movie, start to open. His arms, which have been locked against his body, start to stretch out. His head, which has spent the whole film tilted down toward the ground, begins to rise. The dance is slow. It is quiet. It is almost religious. He looks like someone being baptized in reverse, stepping out of the water as a different person from the one who went in. He has not become the Joker yet. He does not even know the word. But something that was never allowed out before is coming out now. And it is coming out through his hands and his back and the way his feet find the tile floor. His face, under the smeared makeup, looks almost peaceful. He is not afraid of what he just did. He is not sorry. His body is telling him that whatever that was, it worked. Something got through. That is the first dance, the dance of a door opening. The second dance is on a set of stairs. The stairs are real. They exist. They are called the West 167th Street Stairs in the High Bridge neighborhood of the Bronx in New York City. You can go there. People do. Since the movie came out, they have become a tourist site, and somebody once got Google Maps to list them as a religious destination as a joke, and the joke was allowed to stay up for a while. Because in a way, it was not really a joke. Early in the film, you see Arthur climbing those stairs. Slowly. Heavily. Like a man carrying himself uphill because he has no other choice. He is coming home from work, or from a failed set, or from some other part of the day that took more from him than it gave. The stairs are a chore. The stairs are the price of getting home. He always looks smaller by the time he reaches the top. Late in the film, after he has fully killed the old Arthur and has decided that tonight is the night he goes on Murray Franklin's show, he returns to those same stairs. But he is not climbing now. He is coming down. He is wearing a red suit, a green vest, a yellow shirt. His hair is dyed bright green. His face is painted white with red around the mouth. He has become, visually, the thing the comic book readers know as the Joker. And he is not walking down those stairs. He is dancing. The song playing in the background is Rock and Roll Part 2 by a British glam rocker named Gary Glitter. This song choice has caused real controversy because Gary Glitter, the performer, is a convicted child abuser serving a long prison sentence. The film's editor and the director both knew this when they chose the song. They chose it anyway. Their stated reason is that the music is what Arthur would be hearing in his own head at that moment. It is a victory song. It is the kind of song played in stadiums when a team scores. It is a song designed to make a person feel triumphant, feel powerful, feel like the hero of the last 3 minutes of a movie. The film wants you to feel the wrongness of a song like that being played over a moment like this. A man celebrating his own transformation into a monster is not supposed to get a triumph anthem. And yet the movie gives him one. Because in his head, in that moment, he is triumphant. Look at the body now. Arthur on those stairs early in the film and Arthur on those stairs late in the film are two different physical beings. The early Arthur moves like a man made of apology. Every step is a request to be allowed to exist. The late Arthur moves like a man who has decided to stop asking. His arms fly open, his hips turn. His feet hit the stone in time with the drums. He tilts, he spins, he points at nothing. He kicks. He flips his wrists like a Broadway dancer. He is, without any irony, performing. He has become the stage. The stairs that used to cost him something are now the thing he gives a performance on. The climb that used to wear him down is now the descent that crowns him. The movie is making a physical argument. The geography has not changed. The city is still the same. The stairs are still the same stone, the same height, the same bad neighborhood. What has changed is the man on them. And the man on them is telling you, through his body, that he is not going home anymore. He is going to work. And the work tonight is a murder on live television. Watch the ending of the scene. 2 detectives chase him down those same stairs. They are trying to catch him before he reaches Murray's show. They nearly do. He slips onto a subway car at the last second. The dance ends with a chase. That ending is important. The dance is beautiful, but the world around it is not going to let it stay beautiful. The detectives do not care that he is having a personal moment. They are trying to arrest him. The stairs do not belong to him just because he is dancing on them. Somebody is always chasing him, even now, even at the height of his own transformation. The second dance is the dance of an identity claimed. The world is still trying to stop him, but the body is no longer listening. The third dance is on top of a police car, in the middle of a riot, at the end of the film. After Arthur kills Murray on live television, the city boils over. The clown movement, already simmering for weeks, turns into a full uprising. People in clown masks flood the streets. They set fires. They break windows. They fight the police. They turn over cars. Gotham, in one night, becomes the city the graffiti was threatening it would become. Arthur is arrested, put in the back of a police car, driven away. A stolen ambulance slams into the car. Arthur is pulled out of the wreck by a crowd. His face is bleeding. His suit is torn. And then, with the riot moving around him, with the city burning in the background, with clown-masked strangers cheering all around, he slowly climbs up onto the hood of the police car, looks out at the crowd, and starts to dance again. This third dance is different from the other two. The bathroom dance was private. The stairs dance was public in theory, but mostly alone in practice, just him and the camera. This dance has an audience. Hundreds of people around him, all of them cheering, all of them wearing his face, all of them thanking him in their own way for something he did not even plan to do. He raises his arms. He tilts his head back. Blood is running down his chin and his face paint is smeared. He smiles a crooked smile and he uses his own bloody finger to paint a wider red smile onto his face, right there on the hood of the car, with the sirens still blaring in the distance. The crowd roars. In that moment, Arthur is no longer dancing for himself. He is dancing for them. He has become what the city needed him to be: the symbol, the figurehead, the clown king. He did not ask for this job. He did not apply for it. He did not even know it was available. But the city has handed it to him, and his body, which has always known more than his mouth did, is receiving the crown. Here is what the 3 dances add up to when you put them in a row. The first one is a birth. A man, alone in a bathroom, discovers that his body has a voice. The second one is a claim. A man in makeup walks down the stairs of his own city and tells the air itself that he is somebody now. The third one is a coronation. A man bleeding on top of a police car is lifted up by strangers who never knew his name, and he becomes their picture of what defiance looks like. You can watch all 3 with the sound off and still understand the arc of the movie. You can turn the volume all the way down and still know exactly where Arthur is in his story by looking at his shoulders, his hips, his hands, his head. The film has put its whole argument about his transformation into the body of its lead actor. That is not a small choice. That is the kind of choice a filmmaker only makes when he trusts his actor more than he trusts his own dialogue. And the reason the dances work as well as they do is because of the man dancing. Joaquin Phoenix lost 52 pounds to play Arthur Fleck. He did it by eating very little for a long period of time under a doctor's supervision. He did it, in his own words, because the physical weakness unlocked a kind of movement in him that he had never found before. He said that as his body got lighter, he felt a strange new freedom in the way he could carry it. He could move his body in ways he could not before. That is the thing you are watching in every one of these 3 dances. A body so hollowed out that it has become, paradoxically, able to do things a normal body cannot do. A bag of bones that moves like it has forgotten the rules. The dances are the most Arthur thing in the whole film, and also the least Arthur thing. They're the most Arthur thing because they're where his real feelings finally come out. They are the least Arthur thing because the Arthur who existed before the movie started could never have done any of them. He did not have the body for it. He did not have the permission for it. Something had to be stripped away from him. Weight and hope and medicine and family and work, before his body could turn into this new thing capable of this new dance. The film is telling you that the Joker is not a mask Arthur put on. The Joker is a body Arthur grew into, 1 pound at a time, 1 humiliation at a time, 1 cut appointment at a time, 1 broadcast mockery at a time. By the time he dances on top of that police car, the body is so far from the body in the mirror at the start of the film that they might as well belong to 2 different people. In a way, they do. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But there is one more collaborator in those 3 dances that the film never puts on screen and never really names. A woman working alone with a strange electric cello in a studio in Iceland, who wrote music about Arthur before she had ever seen a single frame of him, and whose slow, aching cello notes were already playing on set the day the bathroom dance was invented. Without her, there is no dance. Without her, there is no transformation. And to understand what the music is actually doing in Joker, you have to understand that the score is not keeping Arthur company. The score is telling you what is happening inside him, long before his face catches up. Section 8. The score as character. Hildur Gudnadottir's Cello Requiem. Most movies build their music last. You film the scenes, you cut the scenes together, you show the finished cuts to a composer. The composer watches, notes the places where a feeling needs to be lifted, goes away, and writes music that fits the pictures. That is how it is done, almost always. The music is the last layer. It arrives after everything else. Joker did it the other way around. Before any of the big scenes had been filmed, before Joaquin Phoenix had found the walk, before the stairs and the bathroom and the studio set had been dressed, the director sent the script to an Icelandic composer named Hildur Gudnadottir. He asked her to read it. She read it. And then, sitting alone with a cello in her studio, she started writing music based only on how the script made her feel in her chest. She was not watching any footage. She was not responding to a performance. She was writing to a feeling she got from reading about a man whose whole life had been made small by the world around him. The first thing she wrote was a slow, heavy piece for a single cello. It was not loud. It was not busy. It was almost simple. Just a low, aching line that sounded like somebody breathing underwater. She sent it to the director. The director listened, and he decided on the spot that this was the sound of Arthur Fleck. From that moment on, the music did not follow the film. The film started to follow the music. When principal filming began, the director brought her recordings onto set. He played them out loud while scenes were being shot. He played them through earpieces into Phoenix's ears so Phoenix could move to them. He let the slow, sad cello fill the air on the day of the subway murders, on the day of the bathroom, on the day of the stairs. The actors were not performing in silence and then getting music layered on later. They were performing inside the music, physically, while the cameras rolled. Their bodies had to respond to it in real time. That is why the movie feels the way it feels. You are not watching a film that got a score. You are watching a film that was partly grown inside a score. The main instrument Gudnadottir used is the cello. She is a classically trained cellist. That is her voice. But for the theme that plays in the bathroom scene, she used a special kind of electric cello called a halderophone. It is a cello that has been rigged up with extra strings and speakers, so that the vibrations of the instrument are picked up, fed through an amplifier, and allowed to vibrate back into the instrument, which then feeds back on itself in a strange, haunted, low, growling way. The instrument sounds almost alive. It sounds like an animal that is trying not to be noticed. It sounds like a man breathing in a bathroom stall, right after he has done something he cannot take back. Think about how right that is for the character. Arthur's whole movie is about feedback loops. He is a poor man ignored by the system, which makes him more broken, which makes him more ignored. He is a sick man whose medicine runs out, which makes him more sick, which makes him less able to hold a job. He is a lonely man who watches a talk show host to feel less lonely, and then the talk show host laughs at him, which makes him lonelier still. Everything in his life feeds back into itself and gets louder each time it loops. And the instrument that plays his theme is, literally, an instrument built to feed back on itself. The more it plays, the louder and darker its own echoes become. The sound of Arthur's theme is the sound of his life. Gudnadottir has said, in her own words, that the cello is meant to carry the empathy for Arthur. The cello is the part of the music that loves him. It is the part that stays close to his chest, that speaks for his small, scared, hopeful side. The part of him that just wanted a father and a girlfriend and a career. That is the voice you hear at the start of the film. Soft, lonely, full of care. But there is a whole orchestra hiding underneath that cello. This is the part most viewers do not realize on first watch. When you hear one lonely cello early in the movie, while Arthur is by the dumpster with the kids, while he is climbing the stairs, while he is riding the bus, there is not just one cello playing. There is a whole, full 100-piece orchestra playing too. The orchestra is there from the beginning. The orchestra is just mixed very quietly in the background. You hear it almost like a ghost behind the cello. It is the feeling of something large waiting to come forward. You do not quite notice it, but your body does. And as the movie goes on, the mix slowly changes. The cello gets quieter. The orchestra gets louder. By the time you reach the end of the film, by the time Arthur is on top of that police car with blood on his face, the single cello is almost gone. The full orchestra has taken over. All the strings, all the brass, all the heavy drums, all the low growling sounds have risen up and covered the small voice that was there at the beginning. The composer has said this is the whole point of the score. The cello is Arthur. The orchestra is what grows inside him. The movie is a slow contest between those two sounds. At the start, we can still hear Arthur. At the end, Arthur is drowned. There is no clearer way to tell the story of a man being erased from the inside. Listen to what this choice does to specific scenes. When Arthur visits the social worker, the music is quiet. One instrument, a few slow notes. You do not even notice it, which is the point. The orchestra is there, tiny, but you are not supposed to feel it yet. At this point, Arthur is still mostly himself. The soft voice is still leading. When Arthur shoots the three men on the subway, the music changes. Brass enters. Drums come in. The texture thickens. The orchestra leans forward. You can feel a larger body of sound moving in the room. Something bigger than Arthur is stepping onto the stage. Then, in the bathroom, the Haldorophone plays that strange feedback theme. The cello is still there, but it has gotten sicker. Something electrical has gotten into it. When Arthur dances down the stairs, the movie gives you a licensed pop song, which is a different kind of music entirely, meant to represent what Arthur hears in his head, not what the orchestra thinks of him. But listen to the beats between the licensed songs. Those are Gudnadóttir. Those are orchestra. Those are the full weight of the band waiting underneath the party music. And when Arthur kills Murray and then climbs on top of the police car and the city goes up in flames, the orchestra becomes almost unbearable. Huge low chords, heavy strings. A choir appears. The small solo cello that was the voice of Arthur at the start of the movie is nowhere to be heard. It has been buried under the weight of the orchestra that was always waiting for it. The empathy, the care, the softness, all of it has been covered up. What is left is a noise that is both triumphant and sick at the same time. The sound of somebody being lifted up by a crowd that does not know him. The sound of a man whose own voice has been replaced by a roar. This is not an accident. This is a piece of writing done on a page of sheet music that maps directly onto a piece of writing done in a screenplay. The composer and the director built the same arc in two different languages at the same time. Then they stacked them on top of each other. That is why the movie is so hard to shake. There is one more thing about the score that is worth saying out loud. Gudnadóttir has talked in interviews about how she felt when she first read the script. She said she felt sorry for Arthur. She said she did not see him as a villain. She said she saw a man who was trying to bring joy into the world and just kept failing because of everything outside him. She said she wanted to write music that allowed him to have a softer side, because in the movie, he does not get many chances to show one out loud. So when you hear the cello, especially early on, that is the composer's own pity for him, made audible. She felt for him first. Then she wrote him a voice. That is what the film means when people call the score a requiem. A requiem is a piece of music written to mourn somebody who has died. The composer is treating Arthur from the first note as somebody already lost. The movie, in her reading, is not a rise. It is a long, slow funeral. The cello is grieving him in real time, from the moment the movie begins, while he is still walking around in his own life, trying to find a way out. And the orchestra is the thing that is killing him. Not a person, a sound, a weight. The low, heavy pressure of everything around him, rising up, scene after scene, until the voice that could still be saved at the start has gone silent. There is a reason this score won every major award it was eligible for, including the Oscar for Best Original Score. It did not win because it was pretty. A lot of music is pretty. It won because it does the thing most film scores do not do. It carries the argument of the film inside itself. You can listen to the album by itself and hear the shape of Joker even without the pictures. That is extremely rare. Most film music sounds like furniture without the film to hold it up. This one walks on its own. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. All of that leaves one strange question floating over the movie, though. Because if the score has been treating Arthur like a man already dead from the first scene, and if the composer has been writing him a funeral in real time, there is a quiet problem the movie forces you to sit with by the very end. Everything you have just watched, every dance, every speech, every murder, every rise, every riot, every crowning moment on that police car, may not actually have happened at all. The final scene of the movie is going to put Arthur in a small white room, with a psychiatrist he has never met, in a place with a very familiar name. And once you see that room, you have to start asking which parts of the story you just sat through were real, and which parts were told to you by a man who has every reason in the world to lie. Section 9. The unreliable narrator, and why it matters politically. The final scene of the movie is set in a small, clean, well-lit room inside a place called Arkham State Hospital. This is Gotham's mental institution. It is the place the comic book readers know as Arkham Asylum. But in this version of the story, the film calls it a hospital, because a hospital is a more honest word for what it really is. A place where the city stores people it does not want to deal with. Arthur is sitting in this room. He is wearing a plain white outfit. His hair is no longer green. His face is clean of paint. He is smoking a cigarette. There is a woman sitting across from him. She is a psychiatrist. She is asking him questions the way the social worker at the start of the film asked him questions. And she is holding a clipboard the same way the social worker held a clipboard. The lighting is similar. The room feels similar. He sits the same way. She sits the same way. The scene, visually, is a mirror of the very first scene of the movie. That mirror is not an accident. That mirror is the whole point. The psychiatrist asks what he is thinking about. Arthur smiles slowly. He says he just thought of a joke. She asks him to share it. He looks at her and says, "You wouldn't get it." Then the camera cuts away, and for a single beat, you see a boy. A little boy, no older than about 10, standing in an alley, staring down at the bodies of his mother and father. The boy is Bruce Wayne. His parents have just been shot in the street by a clown-masked rioter during the uprising that Arthur started. Then the movie cuts back to Arthur. He stands up. He walks out of the room. He leaves a trail of bloody footprints down the white hall. Orderlies chase him. He laughs. He dances again, a small dance, down the corridor. The credits roll. That is the ending. And once the credits roll, you are supposed to ask the question the movie has been quietly setting up for 2 hours. How much of what you just watched actually happened? The director of the movie, Todd Phillips, has been very open about this in interviews. He has said in multiple places that the final scene is not just Arthur in an Arkham room after the story. The final scene may, in fact, be the only real scene in the whole film. Arthur, Phillips has said, has been in that hospital the whole time. Everything you just watched was a story Arthur was telling the psychiatrist. A version. One possible origin. Maybe not the true one. Phillips has used the exact phrase, "This is just the version this guy is telling in this room at a mental institution." He has said he does not believe Arthur is the most reliable narrator in the world. He has said there are many ways to look at the movie. He has said there is a real chance that Arthur Fleck is not even the real Joker. Maybe he is somebody who inspired the Joker. Maybe he is a confused man in a ward making up a story. Maybe, as Phillips put it, the whole movie is the joke. The joke this guy in Arkham Asylum came up with. The film gives you clues all the way through that you may not be getting the truth. The biggest clue is Sophie Dumond. Sophie is the woman who lives down the hall from Arthur, a single mother. For about half the movie, Arthur and Sophie appear to be in a relationship. She shows up at his comedy set. She sits with him at the hospital when his mother has a stroke. She kisses him. She laughs at his jokes. They seem, for a while, to have a real connection. For Arthur, she is a lifeline. She is the one person in his world who seems to see him and like him and want him around. Then, in one short scene, the movie shows you the truth. Arthur walks into Sophie's apartment without her permission. She is terrified. She says his name and tells him she does not know him. She is a stranger. She has never dated him. Everything the audience has been shown of their relationship, every scene of them together, was happening only in Arthur's head. The movie was lying to us, quietly, for the better part of an hour, because Arthur was lying to himself for the better part of his life. Once the Sophie reveal lands, the ground under the whole movie starts to move. Because if the movie was willing to invent an entire girlfriend, then how many other things you watched were also invented? Did his mother really write those letters to Thomas Wayne? Or did he imagine the letters? Did Wayne really punch Arthur in a public bathroom? Or did Arthur picture that punch to give himself a reason to hate him? Did the riots really reach the size the movie shows? Or did Arthur inflate them in his own retelling to make himself the center of a revolution? Did the Murray Franklin killing really happen on live television? Or is the whole talk show finale a fantasy of a man who watched talk shows his whole life and finally wrote himself a grand ending? You cannot answer any of these questions for sure. The movie will not let you. That uncertainty is not a trick. It is a point. Here is why it matters politically. When you walk out of the theater believing every scene was real, the movie is one thing. It is the story of a broken man who was pushed past his limit, who killed several people, who accidentally started a mass uprising, whose final act of violence brought the richest family in the city to the ground. It is a story with a clear villain, which is the system, and a clear result, which is that the system paid for what it did. When you walk out of the theater believing some of it happened and some of it didn't, the movie becomes something much sadder, something much quieter, something much more honest about the actual lives of actual people in actual cities, like the one the movie is pretending to be. Because here is the hard truth. Most Arthurs in real life do not kill Wall Street workers on trains. Most Arthurs do not get invited onto talk shows. Most Arthurs do not start uprisings. Most Arthurs do not have a crowd of strangers lift them up on a car hood and cheer their name. Most Arthurs, in real life, sit in a small room somewhere, on medication that may or may not be working, and imagine all the things they might have done if the world had noticed them. Most Arthurs die without a single news crew ever learning their name. If the unreliable narrator reading is correct, then the movie is about that. It is about a forgotten man in a hospital ward, drawing up a daydream in which the world finally had to pay attention to him. A daydream in which he killed the ones who hurt him. A daydream in which he was loved, briefly, by a neighbor who in real life was probably just polite in a hallway once. A daydream in which a talk show host read his name on air. A daydream in which an entire city rose up in his honor. And if that is the reading, then the political weight of the movie changes. The movie stops being about a violent uprising. It becomes about the loneliness that makes people dream up violent uprisings in the first place. It becomes about the specific wound of being so invisible that the only comfort left at the end of a broken life is to sit in a locked room and invent a version of yourself that the world had to finally see. That is a sadder movie. It is also a truer one. Both readings live inside the film at the same time. Phillips has refused, on purpose, to say which is the one he believes. He has said the movie works either way. He has even said that when they shot the final scene, the one where Arthur walks down the bloody hallway of Arkham, they filmed it many different times, with different choices in every take. Sometimes he was alone. Sometimes he was not. Sometimes he was laughing. Sometimes he was not. They used the one that felt right. But there are other versions, filmed and stored, that tell the scene differently. The film itself, in its own production, was never sure which Arthur was the real one. That matters because it tells you the movie's biggest argument, which has nothing to do with Batman and very little to do with clowns. The movie's biggest argument is that a society that ignores people like Arthur will also, eventually, ignore the stories those people tell. The system that never heard him speak is now going to hear his whole life as a confession from a locked room. And because he is sick, because he is diagnosed, because he is already labeled as an unreliable narrator by the people who put him in that room, his story will be filed somewhere and forgotten. Nobody outside the walls of Arkham is going to remember what he said. Nobody is going to rush to check whether the rich really did abandon the poor in his neighborhood, whether the medicine really did run out, whether the talk show really did laugh at him. Those truths, the real ones inside his fake story, will die with him. The film is saying that this is the last trick society plays on people it has already broken. First, it ignores them. Then, when they finally produce a story big enough that somebody has to listen, it calls them crazy. And because they are, by then, actually crazy, the charge sticks. The diagnosis becomes the excuse to throw the story out. The movie wants you to feel that weight. It wants you to finish the film and think, wait, if Arthur has been in Arkham the whole time, what were the real things that happened to him before he got there? Was his mother really abusive? Was the social worker really his last help? Did he really lose his medicine? Did he really get kicked by children in an alley? Because those small, quiet facts, the ones at the base of his life, do not feel invented at all. They feel specific. They feel like the kind of things a person remembers correctly. It is the ending that looks made up. The beginning looks real. If the beginning is true and the end is a dream, then the movie is not about a revolution. It is about a man who was abandoned so completely that inventing a revolution was the only thing he had left. That is a reading most first-time viewers do not arrive at. But it is there, built into the movie's final minute, locked into the mirror between the first room and the last room. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And if you accept that reading, even partly, you have to face something bigger about the movie itself. You have to face the question of what the movie was asking the audience to do. Because a film this provocative, released into a real world in the middle of a real argument about violence and class and mental illness and resentment, was always going to get fought over. And the fight over this film, when it came, was not really about whether the film was good or bad. The fight was about what kind of people would watch it, and what those people might do after. That fight was about to become its own cultural event. And to understand the movie as a whole, you have to look at the fight around it almost as carefully as you look at the film itself. Section 10. Why everyone fought about it and what they missed. Before almost anybody in the general public had seen Joker, almost everybody already had an opinion on it. That is a rare thing for a movie. Most films arrive in theaters quietly, find their audience, get reviewed, and either catch on or fade away. Joker did not get to do any of that. By the time it actually opened in October of 2019, the fight over what the movie meant had already been raging for weeks. The fight was loud. The fight was everywhere. The fight was not really about the film, because most people screaming about it had not seen it yet. The fight was about what the film might do. To understand this, you have to remember how the weeks before release actually unfolded. The movie had its first big showing at the Venice Film Festival in late August 2019. It won the top prize there, a Gold Lion, which is one of the most respected film awards in the world. Critics in Venice stood and applauded for 8 minutes straight at the end of the screening. Some of them called it a masterpiece. Some of them called it the best performance Joaquin Phoenix had ever given. Some of them wrote that it was the most important American movie of the year. Within days, the mood changed. Other critics who had seen the film began writing pieces that were much more worried. A reviewer at Time magazine wrote that in America, there is a mass shooting or an attempted act of violence by a guy like Arthur practically every other week. And then the movie wants you to feel sympathy for him. A writer at Vanity Fair praised the craft of the film, but admitted he was troubled by how seriously the film seemed to want you to take Arthur. Other reviews called the film dangerous, deeply troubling, and a rallying cry for lonely and angry young men. Then, in the week leading up to release, something much bigger happened. Families of the people who had been killed in the 2012 Aurora, Colorado theater shooting wrote an open letter to Warner Brothers, the company releasing Joker. In 2012, a young man named James Holmes walked into a midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises, the last Christopher Nolan Batman movie, and opened fire on the audience. 12 people were killed. 70 more were injured. The shooter, after his arrest, became linked in the public imagination with the Joker character, even though the film he attacked did not feature the Joker, and even though he had never claimed to be inspired by the character in any clear way. The link was made in the press. It was made by police officials. It stuck. For the families of those victims, a movie called Joker, 7 years later, with a sympathetic origin story for exactly that character, was hard to accept. They wrote to the studio. They did not ask for the film to be canceled. They asked the studio to stop donating money to politicians who took money from gun rights groups. They asked the studio to support programs that help victims of gun violence. They said, in very clear language, that the timing and the subject made them afraid. Then the United States military got involved. An email went out to military service members in September, warning them that there could be a real risk of violence at theaters showing Joker. The email advised service members to identify 2 escape routes before the movie started, and to run if they had to. Around the same time, a bulletin from the FBI was reported, saying that law enforcement was monitoring social media posts by members of an online community that calls itself involuntarily celibate, or incel for short. These are mostly young men online who are angry at women and at society for reasons they blame on other people. Some of them, the bulletin said, were talking about using the release of Joker to do something violent. A small subgroup was even calling itself Clownsels. Theater chains responded. The AMC and Landmark chains banned all masks, costumes, and fake weapons from Joker screenings. The New York Police Department promised to station officers in uniform at every theater in the city showing the film. Undercover officers were placed inside theaters. The theater in Aurora, Colorado, where the 2012 shooting had happened, decided not to show the film at all. Warner Brothers released a public statement. The statement said the movie was not an endorsement of real-world violence of any kind. The statement said it was not the intention of the filmmakers or the studio to hold the character up as a hero. The statement said, one of the jobs of storytelling was to provoke hard conversations about hard issues. The director of the film, Todd Phillips, was asked about all of this. His answer was sharp. He said he was confused about why people were against even having a discussion about violence. He said outrage had become a product. He said he found it striking how easily the far left, in its criticism of the film, could end up sounding a lot like the far right when it suited the moment. All of this was happening before the movie actually came out. When it finally opened on October 4th, 2019, it made roughly $96 million in the United States in its first weekend. That made it the biggest October opening in the history of the American box office at that time. Nothing violent happened at any of the screenings. The feared mass shootings did not occur. The incels did not storm the theaters. The movie just played, and people watched it, and then people kept watching it, until the film eventually made over $1 billion worldwide. It became the first ever rated R movie to cross that number. So what did the fight actually miss? The fight assumed, on both sides, that the film was telling its audience what to think. One side saw a celebration of a violent loner and worried that violent loners would watch it and be inspired. The other side saw a powerful social drama and believed the film was a righteous cry for the poor. Both sides, in different ways, treated the film as a message, a pamphlet, a recipe, a statement you either agreed with or did not. The film is not a message. The film is a diagnosis. It does not tell you Arthur is right. It does not tell you Arthur is a hero. It also does not tell you he is only a monster. It puts him in front of you and asks you to sit with the fact that he is both things at the same time. A man who has been failed in ways that are real and specific and visible. And a man who responds to that failure by doing things that are unforgivable. Both truths have to be held at once. The film will not let you let go of either one. This is what the fight before the release could not do. The fight needed the movie to be one clean thing, a hero story, a villain story, a warning, a glorification. Because the real-world argument the fight was having about mass shootings and lonely men and social collapse needed clear sides. You could not win the argument with a movie that would not pick a side. So the fight decided, before the movie came out, what side the movie had picked. the fight picked for it. Time has been kinder to the film than the fight was. In the years since 2019, Joker has been quoted, referenced, imitated, argued over, and remembered in ways that keep coming back to one thing. Whatever you thought it was while it was in theaters, the film saw something about the direction of the culture that the culture has kept walking toward. The film put on screen a world where the poor and the sick and the ignored eventually stop quietly accepting their invisibility, and where, when they stop, the people at the top of the system are stunned, because the people at the top of the system had never thought about what it was like to be the other guy. Arthur says that line on the Murray Franklin show. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy. 6 years after the movie came out, that line hits differently than it did the first time. In December of 2024, a young man named Luigi Mangione shot and killed the chief executive of a large American health insurance company on a street in New York City. The case became, within hours, a national argument. Some Americans were horrified. Others, in large numbers, online and in private, openly admired the shooter. People compared the moment to the moment in Joker when Arthur kills Murray. They compared the response of the public to the clown uprising in Gotham. They noted that a sick and frustrated population, after decades of being denied care by a system designed to deny them care, was reacting to a single act of violence in ways that looked uncomfortably similar to what the movie had shown. Nobody making Joker could have known, in 2018 and 2019, that this exact moment would happen. But the film saw something the fight around it did not. The film saw that a society which treats its poor and its sick badly enough, for long enough, starts to lose the moral ability to be surprised when some of those people lash back. And the film saw that the people in power, when the lashback comes, will always be the last to understand why. They will keep saying the same things Thomas Wayne said on the morning show. They will call the angry cowards. They will call the desperate envious. They will call the poor clowns. And they will be shocked every single time when the clowns come back with their faces painted. Joker did not tell anyone to hurt anyone. Joker is not a manual. Joker is not a call to action. Joker is a quiet, careful, slow story about what happens when a city stops caring about a specific kind of person, multiplied by millions of that kind of person, for a specific kind of decade, while the rich keep getting richer, and the talk shows keep getting funnier, and the medicine keeps running out. The fight before the movie came out was looking at the wrong thing. The fight was asking, will this movie cause people to do something bad? That was never the right question. The right question was the one the movie itself was asking. What kind of society produces people who already want to do something bad? And what does that society owe them? And what does that society owe the rest of us, if the answer turns out to be nothing? Those questions do not have easy answers. The film, to its credit, never pretends they do. It just lets them sit there, in the middle of the room, next to a quiet man with a bad laugh and a head full of noise, while the city outside his window keeps on breaking in every direction at once. And the strange, sad truth about Joker is that the movie has slowly become less scary to the culture since it came out, and the culture has slowly become more like the movie. The conversations we were too afraid to have in 2019 are now the conversations we have every day. The distance between Gotham and the evening news has been shrinking year by year, and Arthur Fleck, sitting in his white room in Arkham, smoking his cigarette and laughing at a joke he will not share, is starting to look less like a warning and more like a picture. Not of a man who could be any of us, of a world that could be any of ours. And that, finally, is what Joker really said about society. Not a slogan, not a manifesto, Just a long, quiet, painful look at a city that had stopped looking at itself. And a man who was, in the end, the mirror nobody in that city was willing to pick up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.